Coming up today, replacing pills with a pump, the new option for people living with Parkinson's. Hear what a difference it is making in one woman's life. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. At least 1 million Americans live with Parkinson's disease. And for decades, the first line of treatment has been a combination of drugs, levodopa and carbidopa, often taken as pills. They keep symptoms like tremor at bay until they start to wear off and you need to take more pills. So it becomes a cycle. Today we're learning about a newer option where the same drugs are delivered by a pump. So instead of setting alarms and trying to keep track of pills every couple of hours, patients let the pump do the work. Parkinson's is the second most common degenerative brain disease behind Alzheimer's. It is the most common movement disorder. Doctors used to diagnose about 40,000 to 60,000 cases a year. That number is growing. It's now about 90,000 cases a year. We are hoped to be joined this morning by a woman. That woman right there, Pam Sullivan. Pam lives with Parkinson's and for the past few years has been part of a clinical trial testing the safety and effectiveness of the pump that we are going to be talking about today. Pam, so glad you were able to connect with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
I am. We can see and hear you well. Big thumbs up. So thank you for being with us. We'll get to you in just a moment. We're also joined by Pam's movement disorder specialist, Dr. Rajesh Pahwa. Dr. Pahwa is the chief of the Parkinson's and Movement Disorder Division here at the University of Kansas Health System. And we are excited to hear about this new option. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great to always have you with us. Pam, when you were first diagnosed with Parkinson's, what symptoms did you first notice?
The thing I noticed was a kind of freezing, which has not continued, thankfully. But what I noticed is I'd be washing my hair, and you know how you move your fingers rapidly through your scalp. I was not able to do that. It would be like scrub, scrub. I had to think through the step. So I thought that was odd. Same thing with whisking it, like to beat up an egg to make a scrambled egg. So that was the very, very first thing I noticed.
Interesting. Yeah, I would imagine everybody kind of goes through life and there's that one moment, that one activity that they're trying to do that tips them off to think something's not quite right. So Pam, what treatments did you try first? What was that first line of defense?
I went to a different doctor first, and she prescribed the replacement therapy and the, I can't remember, the one that duplicates. I can't remember the medical term for the kind of medicine that duplicates the carbidopa, levodopa.
A dopamine agonist.
There you go. The dopamine agonists make me sick. I cannot take them. But she said they might make me sick, so to keep trying. I did this for a year, and then I thought, well, I want somebody else's opinion. I don't think this is right. So that's when I sought out an appointment with KU and Dr. Pahwa.
Smart lady. All right, so we spoke with you, Pam, on a previous episode, and back then you were part of a clinical trial for this new pump that we're talking about today. Now that that trial is over and the pump is approved, we can now finally ask you, what was the trial like for you?
I remember the first time we plugged it in, I thought it was magic. It was like I had symptoms and then I didn't. It was astounding.
So how did the pump compare to the pills that you were taking?
Well, the pills that I was taking every 2 hours, and they'd wear off before the 2 hours. So it'd be like, well, it's time to take another pill. I can tell because I'm beginning the tremor again. And so I didn't really feel like I had very much on time ever on the medication, the oral medication. So
how are your symptoms now, day to day, every few hours? Are you feeling anything? Life different?
We can do a live demonstration because I'm a little stressed because I couldn't get my sound to work. So I don't know if you can see my hand. It's got a really fine tremor. I can, off screen, add another dose on the pump.
So you're doing that right now as we speak. You're adding a little bit of a dose.
There's my pump. I can do an extra dose, and we should be able to see probably the next time you come back for a question that it'll be gone.
And you think that was brought on by just kind of that stress that you were feeling? Is that where that came from, Pam?
Yep. I know that's where it came from because I was blind before I clicked and said, I have no link to the meeting. I wonder where it went.
Well, again, we're glad you're on with us. And yes, we'll check back with you and see how those tremors are doing here in just a moment. Dr. Pawa, what made Pam a good candidate for this trial? She'd explained what she'd gone through before, comes to see you. How did you know this was the right fit?
So the thing is, in Parkinson's disease, there's a chemical in the brain, dopamine, that is reduced. So when we give medications like carbidopa, levodopa, levodopa goes in the brain and becomes dopamine. So what happens initially when you take levodopa, you have a good control in your symptoms throughout the day. So if I were to talk about, let's say, a rechargeable phone, when we get a new phone, we plug it in, it works all day. At times you forget to plug it back that night and the phone is still working the next day. And that's what the pills are doing. As the disease gets worse, we have to start giving the pills more frequently because the battery charge, just like a phone, doesn't last throughout the day. So initially, the phone may last a few hours, and over time it gets shorter and shorter. And then what happens is you cannot predict how long each dose or each charge for a phone is going to last, giving you a similarity. So because in her case, she was already on every 2 hours of the dose to keep her even throughout the day. And even with that, she was not really even throughout the day. When this trial came up, we thought she would be a great fit for it.
So here it is. Tell us a little bit about how it works. Kind of show and tell us.
Sure. So this is the pump that is approved now. So when she was in the trial, there was a slightly different pump that was used. What happens is, and I'm just going to show you.
Please.
Think about this as the skin. Okay, this is the skin, and we stick something that literally looks like a Band-Aid on it. It literally has a little bit of a reservoir, so to speak. And if you look under the skin, this is really like a little plastic cannula. I mean,
a little point, yeah.
Little point, and it's between a half centimeter to a centimeter. And as you say, it really is not hard at all. And this is the extension. So you basically plug this in, and this is connected with the extension to the pump here. And if you look at it in the pump, this is the syringe that's providing the drug. And here we can actually change the rate, give them a continuous rate throughout the day. We can give a higher dose. In other words, the patient feels they go home, that dose is not good enough, they can go to the higher dose. Or if it's too much, they can go to the lower dose. Plus, as Pam said, they can get an extra dose. Some people can push a loading dose when they first start. And the other good thing about this is continuous, not only that, but also 24 hours. So a lot of our patients have problems at night, getting up first thing in the morning, and this also helps with those symptoms.
So this is attached to you at all times for the most part?
The white part.
The little white part is attached?
Correct.
Okay, and then that leads into that, and then you carry this around.
And you carry this around.
Okay.
It's size of roughly 2 iPhones.
Yep.
And you can put this in your pocket. You can have some other cloth where, like a vest or whatever, to put this one in.
So you've really described quite a few benefits. Any side effects?
So the main side effects is it's the skin, right? Because the medicine is the same thing. The medicine is now, instead of going through the mouth, into the stomach, into the small intestine where it's absorbed, it's going right underneath the skin. So there are people who may be very sensitive to the skin, and they may get some skin reaction, especially if the drug leaks out. And we tell people to keep moving this attachment, if not every day, at least every 2 to 3 days, and not go back to the original one for 2 to 3 weeks. And literally, you can use your whole abdomen, the side. Some people even use other areas like the thighs for it. But the skin reactions would be the biggest one. Of course, some people can get redness, some people can have a reaction. Very, very rarely, some people can even get an infection from it.
Pam, I want to go back out to you. Did you have any side effects that you noticed?
Yes, but they're not what I call very prominent or distressing. I get it's like a little nodule under the skin that goes away within 2 to 3 days typically. So it's really easy for me to tell where the last injection site was if I forgot, because I can feel the little lump. But compared to the magic that the drug delivers, it's nothing.
So we said we were going to check back in with you, and just a quick backstory. You
Yep.
were having trouble connecting right before the show, so you were getting a little stressed out. You finally jumped on just in the nick of time, but it caused you to have a tremor. Correct?
And did you see it then? Right. And I think it's gone pretty much.
And then you reached in, you clicked, you just you hit a button, and you knew how much to administer?
I can show you. It doesn't look quite the same, but the dosages are locked, so I can, let me get it out here. I've got it in the little pouch Dr. Powell was talking about. So can you see it's got buttons on the front? Let me get my fingers out of the way. So I can push the buttons to raise the dose. I can set it to raise the dose permanently by at a certain amount, or I can lower the dose a certain amount. I happen to be on the middle dosage right now, and then I can press a button for an extra dosage, and that's this one. But it's locked out, so I just pressed it. If I press it now, it'll give me a little message that says it's not time.
Right. So she basically,
Yep.
it's stuck. She can't keep pushing it if she wanted. So what, like she's trying to tell us is that she just pushed it, and now it is locked for the time being before she can push her extra dose.
And this is not the first pump for Parkinson's, correct?
Well, this is not the first pump approved for Parkinson's. That's correct. We have had a similar levodopa pump available for a few years now. The main difference was that it had to be surgically implanted, and that pump actually had to be put into the stomach and into the small intestine. And small intestine is the part where levodopa is actually absorbed. So it required surgery to actually implant the tube, not the pump there. But this one, you really don't require any surgery. And like we showed you, it's literally like sticking a little Band-Aid on the skin, and the medicine goes under the skin.
So how does that compare to the pump we're looking at today?
So really, if you look at the benefits of it, the benefits would be very similar, because that was also providing levodopa more continuously. The challenges with that was the pump, because it was surgically implanted, was more the complications related to surgery. And also the other thing was, after surgery, we had to push some air in it. So the patient was a little uncomfortable because of the air for a first week or so. But as far as the benefits were concerned, they were similar. Now, of course, the side effect-wise, there was more likely to have an infection because there was surgery. Patient had to go to the OR. If the tube moved, which was another thing, or the tube got blocked, they had to go back and have that tube reinserted, was the other thing they had to do. With this, our bigger issue is the skin, because it's going under the skin. Any skin reactions, skin infections, skin redness, those kind of things.
I liked that video of you from 10 years ago. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
You're like a baby. Okay, so just to clarify, though, no surgery needed for this.
No surgery needed for this.
What are other options for patients if if this doesn't seem like a good option for them? What else are we doing now?
Right. So our big thing when patients were having what we call off time, that is, in other words, the medicines not keeping them even throughout the day, or the other end is if they had too much medicines, then they have the dyskinesias where they're moving too much. And the other option at that stage would be requiring surgery, which is deep brain stimulation, which of course we have discussed this in our previous programs too.
Pam, when did you first notice symptoms, a change in those symptoms?
Oh, a change, or I'm not sure.
Did you feel the change immediately when you started using this?
Oh, yes. I didn't. Yeah, my symptoms went away. I mean, as long as I had the medicine, and even even to stop it for a little bit for some activity where the pump can't get wet, like a shower or something, it held longer than the pills did. So I was able to not have the continuous injection, but still have the benefits of it. So I really didn't notice any symptoms once I started the pump.
Does the pump make sleeping more complicated? How does it work through the night for you?
As long as I don't roll over on it, it doesn't bother me. I pretty much strap the pump to myself, so it moves when I move. I just have to manage the extra extension if there's any looping, have to kind of nail that down.
So Pam, give us a big picture. What has what's it been like living with Parkinson's? What have been the biggest challenges that you have faced?
Okay, so I sew. So things like threading needles, even sewing, even stitches, anything that required fine motor control. My major symptom is in my right hand, so I can't use a mouse when I'm off. When I have symptoms, I can't. I can't use the computer very effectively. I can still press the keyboard because I can control the pressure that I need, but it made a lot of things difficult. Nothing probably impossible except the sewing. It made handwriting hard to read because it was all scribbly. So, and I don't feel like I have a very serious case of Parkinson's, so I'm kind of blessed in that way that the symptoms that we had to control weren't controlling my life. And I don't swim. I didn't swim a lot before, but I don't swim because of the pump. I don't want to have it off and have to manage the challenge of then going pills or how to restart it. So.
Well, Pam, we know that some people who live with Parkinson's, they feel like they want to stay in, they want to hide, might be embarrassed or nervous. It could even lead to depression. And they just kind of end up staying away, not being out in public because they never know when a tremor might come on. But you told us that you're out there, you're living life. Do you ever worry about Parkinson's in public? What advice might you have for other people who have those concerns?
I decided early on that I was not going to worry about Parkinson's and being in public because I just couldn't let it control my life in that way. But the pictures that you're seeing, the first one I was at Yosemite with my grandson. We're walking along a granite border to the parking lot, so trying to balance him along there. This is a picture taken here in Kansas City at Tuba Christmas with my grandson and his father, who's my son, and their family. So museum pictures, I go do what I wanted to do. I went to Ireland.
I remember you shared that last time. So you're out actually traveling and again, living life.
Yep. The only challenge to traveling is the medication has to be refrigerated, so you have to manage that. But the rest of it is just your attitude. Yeah.
I think there's a picture that we have with Christmas coming up. Here's a Christmas from Christmas past. What's going on here? What's the story with the step stool?
This is a couple of years ago. We do Cousin Christmas, which is my husband's family and their children. So we decided a long time ago we don't see each other often enough. We were just exchanging gift cards, and that seemed to be silly. So what we do now is we exchange soup. Everybody makes enough soup for everybody, and we all bring our coolers full of frozen soup, and we exchange soup. So you make 4 recipes of your soup, and you get 4 different recipes back. And the latter is belonged to my father-in-law, because the other thing we do is a silly gift exchange. You can't spend more than $5, but it has to begin. The name of the object has to begin with a letter that we're commemorating. So this year we commemorated my husband's mother's maiden name, which is Kendall. So we brought K things, but the latter was Leonard's, and it was for L for Leonard. That was my father-in-law.
Okay, soup exchanges, this interesting white elephant. I love it. Very creative, very creative. Thank you for sharing those. Be sure to ask your questions. You can use the chat on YouTube or Facebook. You can email the Medical News Network. That information is there on your screen. Pam, you came to the University of Kansas Health System for a second opinion. What really prompted that decision?
The medications that I was prescribed by the doctor I was currently seeing was not working and was making me feel worse. So I just thought there's got to be a better answer out there. The person I was seeing was not a movement specialist. It was movement I was having trouble with. It just seemed like a good fit.
Dr. Pawa, how often do you get a Parkinson's patient in for a second opinion?
Actually, that's very common. We are a Parkinson's Foundation Center of Excellence for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. So we have patients who may reach out to us directly. Physicians may refer to us, the Parkinson's Foundation may refer to us. So it's very common that we have patients coming in for a second opinion.
So how does someone know that they need to get a second opinion? Pam explained her example, but are there any other examples in which a patient should go, you know what, I better go see Dr. Pawa?
Right. So, you'll be really surprised that at least 50% of the Parkinson's patients have never seen a neurologist. and less than 10% see a movement disorder specialist. So our thing is, even if we can have every patient at least see a neurologist for their Parkinson's, and if possible, at least see a movement disorder specialist at least once to make sure they're on the right path, that's what we really need to do. But if you think about it, 50% of the Parkinson's patients have never seen a neurologist, forget a movement disorder specialist.
Any misconceptions or misinformation about Parkinson's that you want to share?
Well, you know, whenever you have a disease that you cannot cure, there's a lot of things out there where people are trying to push to show that this actually helps with the symptoms, and often there is really no data to back it up. So using supplements, using vitamins is a multi-billion-dollar industry for Parkinson's. We do vigorous trials before a drug is approved. So really, if people are out there taking over-the-counter medications, taking supplements which really have no benefits, or at least no known benefits for Parkinson's, I think people need to be very careful. The other thing, a lot of it is also going on is the stem cell. A lot of people out there are pushing stem cells, but really stem cells are very early in their clinical trials. So anyone who says, oh, why don't you come to my clinic, we'll charge you $5,000 and give you stem cells for Parkinson's disease, I would be very careful about those too.
Are there other trials patients can participate in?
Oh yeah, there are multiple trials ongoing right now. Remember, when we talk about Parkinson's disease, today we talked about a medication that helps the symptoms. The challenge continues to remain is that we need to slow the disease, we need to stop and cure the disease. So we are now at a stage that we are testing medications to actually slow Parkinson's disease. So that's the one thing. The second thing is when we talk about these on and off, these motor fluctuations in patients, the pump is great, but there are a lot of people who don't want to use the pump, who don't want to have surgery, and we are looking at newer medications that can be taken orally to control these symptoms. But yes, there are multiple trials that are ongoing right now.
Pam, what excites you most about the future? Anything that you're really looking forward to doing that you haven't done before?
I need to convince Dr. Powell I can go back to horseback riding. I haven't done that in a long time, and I know.
Nice.
So we'll see about that.
Can she go back to horseback riding?
Yes, she can go back to horse riding. Our always worry is people falling and hurting themselves. But you know, as we all get elderly, our risk of falling increases, and with that, the chances of fractures. So as long as she promises that she will not fall and hurt herself.
Okay, Pam, Dr. Powell is just very protective of you. Okay, you can't help it. Let's get to some questions for our viewers this morning. And Pam, Stuart wants to know, how often do you need to reload the syringe in your pump, and how much of the drug supply do you have that you're storing at one time?
Sure. I get medicine delivered every 2 weeks. Delivery's been a little bit of a challenge, but it doesn't have anything to do with the drug, so I won't go into that. I store it in the refrigerator. It's good for usually more than a month, so maybe 6 weeks. And like I said, I get it every 2 weeks, so I always have extra on hand, which is nice because if you have any kind of accident as you're administering it, you need to start over again, so you'd need a whole new vial of medicine. So it comes in little glass vials. It comes in a box of 6 to a box. I get 4 boxes every 2 weeks, so I always have plenty on hand. It lasts for 24 hours. The medicines begins to be less effective after 24 hours, so I do it every day.
Dr.
So just one thing I would like to point out. I know Pam kept saying she needs to keep it refrigerated. So in clinical trials, yes, we were keeping the medication refrigerated, and that's what would be recommended now. But if someone is traveling, they can keep it outside the refrigerator for up to 28 days, as long as they don't put it back in the refrigerator.
Good to know. Jeremy has a question, Dr. Pawa. He says, I associate Parkinson's mostly with the tremor. I think a lot of us do. But he says, I believe it also affects things like your digestion and swallowing. Is that true? And if so, does the medication help things like that, or is it mostly just the tremors?
Right. So, you know, tremor is the most visible symptom for Parkinson's disease. But in Parkinson's disease, you also have slowness, you also have stiffness, and everything is slow. Pam brought up the point about freezing, and we usually talk about freezing of gait when patients get stuck on the floor and they can't move. But even the hands can times get stuck and they cannot move their hands while doing certain things. But the gut is also a very important part of Parkinson's disease, at least in some patients. So that's the other challenge we have with the oral medications, because they take the medication, there is a lot of it stays in the stomach for a while. The gastric emptying is slowed in Parkinson's. Levodopa is absorbed in the small intestine, so it has to make it in the small intestine, and then it gets it into the blood and the brain. So you can see if the gut is affected, the medications are not going to be as effective, because the whole journey of a pill from a mouth, where you can also start having swallowing difficulties, getting into the stomach where the medicine may sit for a while, get into the small intestine, get into the blood, get into the brain, is a complicated journey. And using subcutaneous therapy, we are eliminating the gut and giving it straight. So that's the other advantage of using the pump.
In general, what's the process or timeline to get a medication or a device approved by the FDA? And how are hospitals chosen to be a part of that trial?
Right. So, it of course depends on the drug or that is being tested and how it is going to be approved. A medicine that is already approved, for example, levodopa, especially it was also approved in the pump form. So we had the efficacy known, so it was more the safety that needed to be tested. Even then, it took us close to 5 years from the time we started the trials to available in the market. And even now, we have to work with insurance companies and Medicare before we can actually provide it to the patient. If it is a medication that is not being used at all before, it can take up to 10 years by the time we finish the clinical trials.
Pam, thank you so much for joining us today. What's the big takeaway from your story?
Well, I hope people heard that if you're on the fence or hesitant, just go forward, be bold. I used it to redefine my life with Parkinson's, kind of. I said, I'm a study subject now. I'm not just a person living with Parkinson's. So I'd say go for it. And if you are wondering, should you see a doctor, like Dr. Pawa said, try and get an appointment with at least a neurologist, and come see him if you can at some point in your career.
Pam, thanks so much. We love your attitude. She says, I just love her attitude. And be careful with the horse. Okay, Dr. Pawa, what's the big takeaway today? What do you want people listening to really get?
So the thing is, Parkinson's disease, there are medications like levodopa which provide great symptomatic control. The challenges with long-term is the patient starts going on a roller coaster where their symptoms are not under control throughout the day. And that is where often patients don't want to go out, don't want to socialize, not knowing how long the next dose is going to last and when it may not work at all. Having this pump gives patients a little bit more independence, that they can be on the medication, have their symptoms more predictable during the day, and live a closer to normal life.
Always great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you both. Thanks to our viewers as well for being with us today. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Coming up tomorrow on the Morning Medical Update, multiple meds, different doctors. For years, Janet King tried to understand her GI pain that nearly killed her. A second opinion gave her the answers. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Morning Medical Update. How Janet found a way to keep her IBD in check. Tuesday at 8.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.